Hello and welcome. So recently I've become obsessed with Q-SYS. And I presume if you're watching this video, you know who Q-SYS are, but basically they can offer things like connection to existing legacy speakers, Dante and AES-67 integration capabilities. They have their own traditional IP and network-based speakers and amplifiers, and networked video cameras with AI and audio tracking capabilities, not to mention integration into pretty much anything you can think of, from TVs to blinds via GPIO, relay, RS-232, IR, and IP APIs. So dare I say they offer a
full stack AV platform.
So after doing 1 million of their training courses, I decided that it was time to use my powers for good instead of evil. And make something for the community. So Q-SYS is a Microsoft Teams Room partner, and they offer fancy integrations into Microsoft Teams Rooms, which they have this template for. So you'll see here, we've got a whole bunch of controls, which basically will control the flow of audio through the system and the flow of video through the system and how that bridges into the Microsoft Teams room and a whole bunch of awesome stuff. So it is very cool. But something that I find to be maybe not so cool is the UCI interface template that they offer. So if you look at this template, it kind of looks like a Teams room, but from about 66 million years ago.
Q-SYS!
So yeah, that just happened.
So I figured that I would see if I could make my own CSS theme that works for Microsoft Teams rooms a little better than this one. So over here I've got a demo that I built, a demo template of a Microsoft Teams room UCI interface that's made using my CSS. So the CSS is really just a CSS file, some icons and some fonts. I'm going to be releasing that on my website, uploading that to GitHub so you can download it and use it for your own UCIs. And so within here we can see if I select a component, basically I'm using CSS class names that have been provided out of those files. In this case, I've got a circular button that's a little bit see-through, and it's also got a dark background. So that's the primary button CSS there. So you can see if I turn it off, it looks insane. And if I turn it on, it looks like a Microsoft Teams Room button. And then if you go down too, you can also control the icons that are shown on these buttons using any of these icon values that are here. So if I change this over to, say, a home button, then you get a nice home button icon there. So I'll change it back to information. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to use. Overall, to import this, you have to have imported it into the system and then also set it up so your UCI here has selected the stylings of the Microsoft Teams Room UCI 1.0, which is what I've named it. And so, yeah, once you've done that and then gone in and styled your components, you then end up with something that looks a little bit more like a Microsoft Teams room than what you started with. So this Q-SYS file that I've made here is actually something that I'm going to release as well. It basically demos how you can build a whole bunch of components that might comprise various components put together to make an outcome that looks a lot like the Microsoft Teams room interface as well. So I'll switch on emulate mode and I'll give you a bit of a demo of that. So as you can see here, we have a nice red button here. So that's a CSS style that I created that makes it look exactly the same as the Microsoft Teams room as well. And when you click on that, that might be used in the background to disconnect the call, for example. So in addition to that, I've made a UCI layer. So if there's an inbound call that comes in, I've made this button to make this so I can just demo it. So if I click on the incoming call button here, and there's an incoming call coming on Teams, basically that would come through as on the HID interface, you'd get accept call and decline call that you could click on. This ringing indicator here would turn on as well. And so at that point, you get this incoming call dialog that shows up. And if you click accept or you click decline, it will accept or decline the call on the actual Microsoft Teams room, which is pretty cool. There's also, say, mute buttons here. So if I click on the mute button, it'll actually highlight the color of the mute button to be the Microsoft Teams purple. And in addition to that, it'll make the icon change to look like it's muted. So that's pretty cool. In the back end, To control that, I'm actually using a text controller here. The good news too is scripting now in version 10 is free. So once you buy a brand new core that has version 10 on it, or you upgrade your current cores to version 10, you'll get scripting for free. So you can do all this scripting stuff now at no extra cost. So if we go in here, we'll just have a quick look at the way this mute controller works that I made. So when you click on mute, the icon changes, right? So if you go into the back end, you'll see when the button's clicked, the mic button event handler, it'll then go in and it'll change the CSS class used on those buttons to emulate whichever button is appropriate for the mute state that it's in at the time. In addition to this, we've got a mute button here for the cameras. So you could link that up in the back end as well to go and flip your cameras around and face away and turn off, so the far end's not seeing anything from your cameras. I've also got a little caret here that if you click on that, it flips up and will show you a display of what's actually on the camera at this particular time. So the camera video bridge is what I'm using here. So I've pulled that video control out of here, and that will now get displayed here on the UCI screen as well. So in addition to those controls, we've got this volume control here. So on a Microsoft Teams room, you'll notice when you click up and down on these buttons, you get a percentage of what volume the room is at the time. So I did the same thing here. So if you click up, you'll get the percentage of what it shows. That'll show for 3 seconds, and then it flips back to normal. And then when you click down, it does the same. And then after 3 seconds, it'll flip back to normal. Here too, I've put in an ellipse button, which doesn't look like a button necessarily, but it's the same as the Microsoft Teams room does it. And when you click on that, it'll bring up a menu. So say you've got too many buttons to fit on your UCI up here, you might put some overflow stuff in this ellipse area here. So if you click on those, it'll just take you to whatever page it is that you want to go to. I've also got here a back button. So the back button, when you're using the Microsoft Teams Room's second page functionality, that's when your Microsoft Teams Room console can actually have a button on it that'll flip you into your UCI. So you can actually see the UCI on the regular Teams Room console, and you don't need a second UCI console. If you do that, you also need a back button to be able to get back to the Microsoft Teams console. When you've flipped over from the regular console to this UCI page, we need a way to get back. So the back button can be linked there to the MTR controller and the hide button on there. So that's what I've linked that to. So yeah, that's a basic overview of like what a homepage could look like. Up the top here, I've got some time and date controls, which come from these time and date controllers back here. I've also got some UCI controls here that are controlled out of variables here. So if I was to go and change this UCI variable here, it would actually update the room name here. So if you just want to use basically the same template, but just change the phone number and change the room name, you can use these UCI controls, the UCI variables here. So if I click on this info button, it takes us to an icon gallery. So this icon gallery is actually useful because it displays all the different icons that I've included within the CSS pack. So if we go through here, we can see there's 7 full pages. So well over 100 icons here that you can select from. Anything from a pizza to, I don't know, a building, a bus, a light, anything you need here is included in the icons pack. So that's pretty cool. And to get to those icons, all you need to do is select whatever control you've got. It might be a button control or something else. And you go down and you select what icon you want to use. And all the icons are all prefixed with the icon word. And then the name there is actually the name, which is the same as the name that I've got in the icon gallery. So it'll say icon add, and that'll give you this add button. And you can see when I click on it, it actually shows the purple for the down click state. If we go now to the camera controls, I've just put a basic camera control dialog together here. It's got 2 buttons on it. So you'll notice these buttons have a light grey background. So the light grey background is the secondary button style. So there's a primary button style, which is this dark button style. And then this light grey style is the secondary style. You'll notice if I toggle between them, the icon in the middle is the thing that changes color that allows you to know the button state, whether it's a 1 or a 0. In addition to that, these camera controls around the edge here, I made a special style for those so they look circular. And so if I disconnect here, we have a check here what these are. So if we go down and have a look, the styling there is called button/camera-preview. So you can use those two in your own UCI. So if I go to shades now, here's really, none of this is linked in the back end to anything. This is all just style demos. So we could make some shade buttons here. So these are rectangular buttons. They have an icon, which could either be on the left or the right, depending on how you set up the CSS. When you click them, they show a purple background. And obviously, to fit text on a button, you really need it to be a rectangular shaped button. Circular buttons aren't very good for fitting text in the middle of. That's why you'll notice on Microsoft Teams rooms, they have the text underneath the button when you're using circular buttons. So anyway, if you need text in the button, a rectangular button is the way to go. You notice here too, I've got a red rectangular button style as well. And this is a red rectangular button with a large icon in the center. So there's a special style for that. You'll notice here I've built sort of a control here that looks a bit like a temperature gauge. So you could use that in your room if you are trying to control the temperature in the room. Obviously this is in Celsius, the proper way to represent temperature. Okay, let's go over to the lights area now. So you can see in the lights area here, we've got a whole bunch of different controls. So we've got 3 sets of faders here for controlling lights. So you can see here I've used the icons for low light down here and high light up here. So you can move the faders to whatever light levels you want them to be at. That's provided you have lights, obviously, that support multi-levels. And then I've put a button down the bottom here so you can cut the lights if you want to cut them immediately. So that's just a concept there if you want to use that sort of thing for using faders to control your lights. And over in this section here, I've got random components over here, so you can just see what they actually look like if you select these various settings. So some of these are just knobs, so a knob will come up with the purple background there. Text box will kind of have this black look as well. Combo box will also have a black style look. We've got a toggle button up here, and this is its CSS name, so button square big icon. And if you toggle that off, it's just got the big icon in the middle. If you toggle it on, it goes purple colored. You can see too, it's also controlling this LED, so you can see what that looks like when it's on and off. We've got a toggle down here too that looks commonly like an iOS style toggle as well. So when it's off, it's gray. When it's on, it's purple. So they're the various sort of components you can use to make your UCI look much more like the modern Microsoft Teams Rooms platform. We'll just take a quick look now within the UCI script. So the script obviously is written in Lua. If you don't understand how to script in Lua, I would suggest you check out the new training course that's been put up on the Q-SYS website. It's very good. It'll teach you every component of everything you need to set up your own Lua scripts to run UCIs on. So here you may want to choose to use some of this, or you may not want to use it. In this example, the mic mute text controller in the back end, which controls these mute components, is just controlled through this component that you pull in here. So the text controller is back here, but that's got a name. If I go out of emulation mode, you'll see that the code name for that is mic mute text controller. So you'll see over here in the UCI, I'm pulling in mic mute text controller from over there and pulling that in as a variable that I can then do stuff with within the UCI script. So UCI controls, these are really just event handlers to handle the UCI variables that were over here that you could put your own values into. Basically, when you run the script, it pulls those out and then puts them into the UCI. Underneath that, we've got the MTR style volume display. So that is this volume display control here that I've put together. And that's just a bunch of script to control the way the percentage shows up on the screen when you click the up and down buttons. So really you can pull that chunk of Lua out and use it within your script as well. As long as you match the name of the mic mute text controller and you include that in your script as well, you'll be able to use basically the same piece of Lua script here as well. And so the home layer here, this really is to control the flipping up and down of the camera control here and also the ellipse control. So when you click on those, they basically go over and make these layers either visible or not visible. When we go down further here, these are all just event handlers that control what's getting displayed on the layers. So this is all built with layers. It's not built with various pages. It's all done with layers. So when you click on those buttons, it uses this layer interlock function, which will just go through and display the specific layer that you're asking for. The pagination controls, so that's really just for the icon gallery pagination. If you don't need an icon gallery within your UCI, you're probably not going to need that, but it might be useful if you ever need to do that sort of thing with pagination. This code might come in handy to come and have a look at. In the back end, it actually connects to another text controller here. So this text controller has a massive table of all those different icon names, and it just feeds through in 21 group batches of that table to display the names and the icons onto the screen. And underneath that, we've got the shades layer. That's just got some basic sort of fake back-end stuff to control that temperature gauge in the back end. Then we've got the lights controls, which was just the same thing, just to toggle up and down. Use that button to pull down those faders on the lights. And then there's just a initialization to set everything back to 0, so it looks right. And then a couple of functions to call to update the phone number in the conference, set it back to the home layer, and just init the controls. So that's a basic overview of how you can also use these CSS files that I've created within your UCI. You'll have access to this Q-SYS file as well. So if you want to pull out various controls from here or you want to use it entirely, is up to you. So another thing I'll quickly show you before I end this, and that's that I've made a whole bunch of different backgrounds. So these are all done using AI, so they're all technically legal to use. And there's just a whole bunch of different ones here. So some nice misty mountains, or if you live in Sydney or you have your UCI in Sydney, you might want to use that one. Or New York, you might want a New York one. This one, I'm going to say this is Melbourne. This is Princess Bridge here, Melbourne in the background. And here's a nice sort of painted looking image of a city. And then a whole bunch of different just wavy patterns that look pretty cool. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the UCI Q-SYS file, which you have access to, and also the CSS files that you're also going to have access to too. So enjoy making your UCIs look more like a Microsoft Teams room, and I will see you next time.